Imagine waking up in the cold, damp hours before dawn. The sky is gray, heavy with mist, and your body aches from sleeping on the hard ground. You pull on layers of leather and chainmail, metal pressing against your skin, restricting your movement. Outside, the roar of hooves and the clanging of steel signal that the day has already begun for your companions. You are a knight, one of the so-called elite warriors of the medieval world. But in this world, comfort, safety, and survival are rare luxuries. Most people today romanticize knights imagining shining armor, chivalrous deeds, and heroic battles. Yet the reality is far harsher. The truth is, if you were to live as a knight, you likely wouldn't survive a single day. Let's start with the armor. Movies make it look elegant, shiny, and almost magical, as if wearing it grants invincibility. The reality is something quite different. Full-plate armor could weigh as much as a modern adult suitcase, sometimes even heavier. It restricted movement, made climbing or running exhausting, and could trap heat in the summer or offer little warmth in bitter winters. Imagine trying to fight, march, or even mount a horse while every joint and muscle is under constant strain. Blisters, sores, and fatigue would be your constant companions. Knights didn't just wear armor, they suffered under it. Then there are the weapons. Swordsmanship is often depicted as an art form, a graceful dance of precision and skill. But the truth is far less glamorous. Swinging a heavy sword or handling a lance in combat required immense strength, endurance, and conditioning. Many knights would train for years simply to avoid breaking their own bodies in battle. And even with that training, one slip, one misjudged move could leave you dead or gravely injured. Shields and armor offered some protection, but they were not magical barriers. A single well-placed strike could end your life instantly. Survival depended not only on skill but also on luck, and luck was never guaranteed. The battlefield itself was chaotic and merciless. You've likely seen depictions of knights standing proudly in formation, banners waving in the wind. In reality, battles were a violent and unpredictable storm. Horses could panic, formations could collapse, and confusion often reigned. Knights faced not just human opponents but mud, rough terrain, disease, and exhaustion. Many did not die from sword strikes but from infections, dehydration, or being trampled underfoot. The romanticized duels and noble combats of legend were rare exceptions. For the average knight, war was brutal, exhausting, and unforgiving. But even outside the battlefield, life was far from easy. Being a knight was not just about fighting. It was about constant vigilance. You were expected to defend your lord's lands, attend to complex political obligations, and maintain your equipment and stables. Horses were incredibly expensive to keep and required daily care, feeding, and training. Armor had to be polished, repaired, and transported. Mistakes could be costly. A neglected piece of armor could fail at a crucial moment. A poorly cared for horse could collapse under the weight of both knight and gear. Everyday life demanded discipline, endurance, and relentless effort. The image of a knight strolling through a castle courtyard, carefree and heroic, is largely fantasy. The diet of a knight was another silent adversary. High-protein meals with meat were common among wealthier knights, but these could be irregular, scarce, or spoiled during campaigns. Fresh vegetables and fruit were luxuries, and food preservation was primitive. Campaigning often meant living off what could be carried, hunted, or foraged, and illness was constant. Dysentery, infections, and malnutrition were far more lethal than any sword. It's a reality that history tends to gloss over. A knight could survive a dozen skirmishes yet fall to something as simple as contaminated water. Beyond the physical hardships, the psychological burden was immense. Knights were expected to uphold ideals of honor and chivalry even when survival demanded pragmatism. They witnessed cruelty, bloodshed, and betrayal daily. Comrades could fall around you in an instant, and there was little time to mourn or process. Mental resilience was as critical as physical strength, but no amount of training could entirely prepare someone for the emotional toll of constant life and death stakes. Loneliness, fear, and exhaustion were part of every day, even for the supposedly privileged warrior class. Let's not forget the social pressures. Knights were members of a rigid hierarchy, bound by feudal obligations. Your loyalty was not to personal ideals, but to a lord who could command your life at will. Disobedience could mean dishonor or execution. Rivalry between knights was constant, often violent and sometimes lethal. Public scrutiny, politics, and personal rivalries shaped much of a knight's life as much as warfare did. You were never truly free. Even your victories could become liabilities if they upset the balance of power. One of the most overlooked realities was the risk of disease. Medieval Europe was rife with plague, fever, and infection. Wounds that might be treatable today were often fatal. A small cut could lead to gangrene, sepsis, or worse. Medicine was rudimentary, and surgeons had limited knowledge or tools. Knights prided themselves on bravery and skill, yet they were as vulnerable to illness as any peasant. The fantasy of invincibility dissolved the moment sickness struck. For many, this was a more immediate threat than any enemy blade. Travel, too, was treacherous. Knights were expected to move quickly across varied terrain, often under extreme weather conditions. Mud, snow, rivers, and forests could all be lethal in different ways. A knight on campaign was constantly exposed, carrying the weight of armor and weapons while navigating unknown paths. Horses could stumble, bridges could collapse, and supplies could vanish. A single misstep could end not just a campaign but a life. And even when a knight survived combat, disease, and exhaustion, the dangers of politics remained. Alliances shifted rapidly, and betrayal could come from friends or lords alike. Being a knight required not only physical skill but sharp strategic and social instincts. Many lives were lost not to swords but to poor decisions, misjudgments, or bad timing. Survival depended as much on intelligence and perception as on strength and courage. It's worth noting that the legendary knightly virtues honor, loyalty, and courage were aspirational, not guaranteed traits. Knights were human, and their actions ranged from noble to ruthless. Romanticized tales emphasize the ideal, but history often records the harsh and morally ambiguous reality. Some knights committed atrocities under orders, engaged in theft, or exploited peasants. Others upheld ideals bravely but at tremendous personal cost. The point is clear. The knightly life was never simple, neat, or safe. Now imagine trying to endure all this day after day. From the moment you rise before dawn to care for your horse, to the endless drilling, training, and preparation, to the constant threat of battle, disease, and political danger, a single day as a knight was grueling. The body would tire, the mind would fray, and the line between heroism and death was thin. The idealized image of the knight as a near-superhuman warrior is seductive, but reality paints a far harsher picture. You would be exhausted, wounded, and perhaps already contemplating the next threat even before the sun sets. In the midst of all this, some might argue that wealth, privilege, or skill could offer a cushion. To some extent, they could, but survival was never guaranteed. A well-equipped knight could still fall in a poorly planned campaign or succumb to illness or accident. The unpredictability of medieval life spared no one. No amount of armor, training, or chivalric oath could make a knight invincible. The brutal truth is that knights were mortal, vulnerable, and constantly tested by forces both seen and unseen. This brings us to a broader reflection. Why do we continue to glorify knights? Partly, it's the power of myth and storytelling. Tales of heroism, honor, and adventure are compelling. They inspire imagination and offer a vision of courage under pressure. But it's crucial to understand that these narratives often leave out the suffering, fear, and fragility inherent in the real nightly experience. True survival required more than bravery, it demanded relentless endurance, sharp intellect, adaptability, and a constant willingness to face danger without the comfort of certainty. So, if you ever find yourself dreaming of donning shining armor and charging into battle, consider this. The life of a knight was not a fantasy adventure. It was a daily confrontation with fatigue, pain, risk, and uncertainty. The strongest warriors often endured relentless hardship just to survive. Many fell to sickness, accident, or the simplest misstep. The romantic image of chivalry is compelling, but it is a polished veneer over a brutal and unforgiving reality. Most would not last a single day. And yet, there is something undeniably remarkable about knights. Despite the risks, they trained tirelessly, fought fiercely, and navigated a world of extreme danger with skill and courage. Their lives remind us of human endurance, discipline, and the complex interplay of courage and vulnerability. Understanding the reality behind the myths allows us to appreciate their feats without succumbing to illusion. The truth is far more fascinating than any legend because it reflects real human struggle and resilience. So, the next time you see a gleaming suit of armor in a museum or in a movie, pause and think about the weight it bore not just physically, but emotionally, socially, and mentally. Think about the relentless rigor, the constant danger, and the fragility of life hidden beneath that shining exterior. The life of a knight was not about heroics in a single moment. It was about surviving countless moments, often without recognition or reward. That's a lesson both humbling and inspiring. If this exploration of knightly life has surprised you, imagine the countless stories of courage and struggle that remain untold in history. Knights were not invincible heroes, they were humans facing extreme circumstances. Their lives challenge us to consider what endurance, resilience, and bravery truly mean. And perhaps, most importantly, they remind us that romanticizing the past often glosses over the extraordinary hardship people endured and still endure in ways that are easy to overlook. If you found yourself reflecting on the harsh realities of a knight's life, share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think you could survive a day as a medieval knight? Or does the reality make the fantasy far less appealing? Don't forget to like this video if you appreciated this deep dive and subscribe for more explorations into history's untold truths. History is rarely gentle, but it is always fascinating, and sometimes confronting the brutal truth is the best way to truly understand the past.